the end of the career and the end of the life is when you're dead. I mean, there's no end. There's no end. It's too exciting. Life is too profoundly amazing to think that it's over.
When news spread that Diane Keaton had quietly left behind an enormous fortune that moved her family to tears, everyone was shocked. Famous for her unique charm, classic fashion, and roles in Annie Hall and The Godfather, Keaton never showed off her money or private life. Yet, behind her calm and cheerful image, she had been secretly creating a lasting legacy. So how did she manage to leave behind such a fortune? Join us as we unravel the surprising fortune left behind by Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton. Fortune. For all her charm and unique personality, Diane Keaton was very smart about money. Behind the big hats and shy humor was a woman who quietly built a strong financial foundation, one house and one project at a time. On screen, she often played dreamers, but in real life, she was one of Hollywood's most careful and intelligent investors. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated to be around $100 million, though friends say she never cared much about the amount. Diane loved beautiful things that had stories. One close friend said, "She didn't buy things to show off. She bought them because they meant something to her." Her real estate work alone could fill an entire book. While many stars spent money on luxury mansions or vacation houses, Diane saw every property as a work of art waiting to be restored. She bought old abandoned homes, broken Spanish-style houses, dusty farmhouses, and run-down Los Angeles estates, and brought them back to life with great care and attention. Architecture became one of her biggest passions. In the 1980s, she renovated several old homes in Beverly Hills and Pasadena, later selling them for millions of dollars. Over time, she became deeply involved in preserving Los Angeles's architectural history, long before it became popular. Her love for design even earned her recognition as one of the city's leading voices for architectural preservation. Diane also shared this passion with the public through her books, such as California Romantica and House. These became bestsellers, combining her photography, stories, and admiration for old California architecture. But her success didn't stop there. Her acting career lasted for over 50 years, bringing steady income from timeless films like Annie Hall, The Godfather trilogy, Manhattan, Father of the Bride, and Something's Gotta Give. Even her later movies, such as Book Club and Palms, became surprise hits, connecting with older audiences that Hollywood often overlooked. Diane was also one of the few actresses of her generation who invested wisely outside of acting. She put money into art, photography, and production. Her company, Blue Relief Productions, helped her keep creative control and earn profits from selected projects. She also made money from book deals, brand partnerships, and voice acting, though she often turned down big offers because she didn't like promoting things she didn't believe in. For her, money was never about luxury. It was about safety, meaning, and leaving something lasting behind. She dressed simply, often choosing old jeans and secondhand coats instead of designer clothes. What made her happy was restoring old things, not buying new ones. She loved spending her weekends fixing up houses rather than attending glamorous Hollywood events. People close to her say her will was carefully planned. She left behind not just money, but homes, artistic collections, and rights to her creative work. Everything was thoughtfully divided between her 2 children and several charitable organizations. Her legacy was not one of luxury or waste, but of passion, patience, and creativity. For Diane Keaton, reinventing herself was never about starting over. It was about improving what was already there, whether it was her career, her houses, or herself. That, more than awards or fame, was what made her truly wealthy. What makes her story even more remarkable is how quietly she did all of it. She never showed off her fortune. She didn't buy flashy cars, gold faucets, or houses just to be talked about. Her spending was deliberate. She valued restoration over replacement, honesty over trends. Her way of handling wealth reflected an older kind of Hollywood, one full of class, restraint, and authenticity. Compared to stars like Meryl Streep or Goldie Hawn, who earned large fortunes through endorsements and global fame, Diane's wealth was smaller in numbers but deeper in meaning. Her money wasn't tied to flashy deals, but to things that would last: homes, creative rights, and memories. Despite living in the spotlight, Diane's closest relationships were deeply personal. She never married, but in her 50s she adopted 2 children, a daughter named Dexter and a son named Duke. The decision came later in her life, but it felt right to her. Friends said she often talked about motherhood as something she chose freely, not because society expected it. She raised her children with love, focus, and simplicity, teaching them to appreciate art, books, and creativity. She didn't want to leave them piles of money just to spend. She wanted to leave them roots, stability, and choices. Her will was organized and fair, avoiding the messy inheritance battles that often follow celebrity deaths. Though full details remain private, trusted sources say her assets, including properties, royalties, copyrights, and creative archives, were split between her children and certain charities she supported. She treated her life's work as a collection of meaningful pieces, photographs, homes, scripts, and memories, all preserved for the next generation. To Diane, true wealth was never about how much money she had. It was about the freedom to choose the work she loved, to say no to things that didn't feel right, and to spend her time bringing beauty back into the world. It gave her the peace of mind to provide for her children, to live honestly, and to stay true to herself. Her friendships also played a big role in her life. People like Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson were not just fellow actors. They were lifelong friends who shared laughter, advice, and quiet moments away from fame. Off-screen, Diane Keaton was thoughtful, grounded, and endlessly curious, a woman who loved deeply, worked passionately, and lived gracefully on her own terms. What led to her sudden demise? Let's find out. Diane Keaton's closing chapter. Diane Keaton passed away on October 11, 2025, at her home in Los Angeles. She was 79 years old. Her family shared the sad news through a short public message, thanking everyone for their love and asking for privacy during what they called a very painful time. The message did not mention the cause of her death, and until now, no official reason has been made public. According to reports from People and Reuters, emergency services were called to her Los Angeles home that morning. She was taken to a nearby hospital, but doctors were unable to save her. Friends later said that her health had declined very suddenly in the weeks before her passing, although she had kept those struggles private. Throughout her life, Keaton had spoken openly about her health challenges, including her struggle with bulimia when she was young and her concerns about skin cancer. However, none of these issues have been linked to her death. News outlets like The Times of India and The Economic Times noted that even after facing many personal difficulties, she stayed active and full of life until her final months. Within hours of the news, social media was filled with messages of love and sadness. Fans shared clips from Annie Hall, The Godfather, and Something's Gotta Give. They posted old interviews where she laughed in the middle of a sentence. Those moments of pure honesty that made her feel more like a friend than a movie star. It wasn't just actors and directors who mourned her, it was people everywhere. Meryl Streep wrote, "No one made ordinary feel this extraordinary." Al Pacino said she was the most honest person I ever met in front of a camera. Younger stars like Emma Stone and Saoirse Ronan shared that Keaton's individuality gave them the courage to be themselves in an industry that often pressures people to fit in. The tone of the tributes said it all. People weren't just mourning a celebrity. They were saying goodbye to someone who made fame feel warm and human. News outlets revisited her film career as if they were turning the pages of a family photo album. From Kay Adams in The Godfather to the unpredictable Annie Hall, Keaton had a rare talent for capturing attention without even trying. She didn't demand the spotlight. She earned it by being genuine, relaxed, and bravely herself. Her death felt different. It wasn't entirely unexpected, but it still left an emptiness, the kind that comes when someone who quietly shaped culture is suddenly gone. Outside her Los Angeles home, a few fans left flowers, letters, and bowler hats, her signature accessory. One note simply said, "You made awkwardness beautiful." That was Diane Keaton. She never tried to fit into Hollywood's idea of perfection, and maybe that's why she became timeless. But who exactly was Diane Keaton as a person? Let's find out. Diane Keaton. Before she became the turtleneck-wearing star of Annie Hall or the witty mother figure in Something's Gotta Give, Diane Keaton was simply Diane Hall, a young girl from Los Angeles who dreamed big, dressed differently, and never quite blended in. She was born on January 5, 1946 in Los Angeles, California, and grew up in a modest middle-class home. Her father, Jack Hall, was a civil engineer, and her mother, Dorothy, was a homemaker with a strong creative side. It was Dorothy's scrapbook entry in a beauty contest that first showed Diane the power of storytelling, especially through pictures. Diane later said her mother documented life before people called it art. Her childhood wasn't glamorous, but it was filled with imagination. She loved music, acting, and anything that allowed her to express herself freely. By the time she attended Santa Ana High School, Diane was already performing in school plays. People knew her for her offbeat humor and a laugh that could light up a room. After spending a short time at Santa Ana College, she moved to New York City to study at the neighborhood playhouse, chasing the dream that had lived in her since childhood. Those who knew her in those early years said she wasn't the loudest or most confident person, but she was deeply observant. She paid attention to how people behaved, their gestures, their tone, the little details most others missed. That curiosity became her greatest strength as an actress. When she got her breakthrough role in Annie Hall, it wasn't just her acting that stood out, it was her realness. Woody Allen once said that the role wasn't written for her. It was her. The mismatched clothes, the rambling speech, the awkward charm, all of it came naturally because it was who she truly was. Off-screen, Diane was just as unique. She never married, but chose to adopt 2 children in her 50s, saying it wasn't about being brave. It was about finally becoming who she was meant to be. Friends described her as thoughtful, sometimes shy, but always funny in a way that felt honest. She loved collecting hats, photographing old and forgotten buildings, and writing in her journals about aging, love, and faith. In a world that often celebrates fitting in, Diane Keaton made her mark by doing the exact opposite. She didn't just play characters who were strange, complex, and real. She truly was those things. That's what made her so fascinating to watch. Her performances weren't about acting. They were about showing who she really was. Even many years into her career, when Hollywood often overlooks older women, she kept evolving. Diane became a director, photographer, writer, and a supporter of architectural preservation. She showed that creativity doesn't fade with time. It grows deeper. How was her younger version like? Let's take a closer look. Growing up. Diane Keaton was born long before the fame, the hats, and the laughter. Her early life was simple, but it already carried signs of the creativity that would later define her. Her mother was the first to show her that even ordinary moments could hold stories. She kept scrapbooks filled with family photos and small captions, turning everyday life, even grocery trips, into something special. Growing up in Santa Ana, California, Diane was surrounded by sunshine and quiet suburbs, but she never really fit in. While other girls tried to look perfect, she was busy being curious about movies, about people, and about how humans behaved. She often sat on her porch watching neighbors pass by, paying attention to their gestures, their voices, and the small things that made them unique. That habit of truly noticing, not just seeing, became her greatest strength as an actress. At Santa Ana High School, Diane joined the drama club and quickly found a home on stage. Acting allowed her to express herself freely, to be bold, strange, and unafraid of looking silly. After finishing school, she studied acting briefly at Santa Ana College before moving to New York City to follow her dream. Life in New York wasn't easy. She lived in tiny apartments, took on small jobs, and studied at the neighborhood playhouse, one of the city's best acting schools. There, she learned discipline, honesty, and how to balance emotion with control in her performances. But even then, she refused to blend in. While others tried to appear graceful or seductive, Keaton embraced the awkward and the real. That courage to be herself shaped everything that followed. Long before she won an Oscar or starred in Annie Hall, Diane Keaton was already becoming the woman the world would admire. One observation, one risk, and one honest performance at a time. What gave her drive when the fame began to fade? Let's find out. A career of endless growth. Diane Keaton's story in Hollywood began not with a bang, but with a stage light. It was 1968, and she was a young actress trying to make her mark in New York City. She joined the cast of the original Broadway production of Hair, the countercultural musical that defined a generation. Keaton, always a nonconformist, was the only performer in the show who refused to appear nude, a choice that made her stand out in the best possible way. It wasn't prudishness, it was principle. "I didn't think being naked was necessary to say something true," she later explained. That small act of independence, quiet but firm, set the tone for the rest of her career. Her Broadway work led to a meeting that would change everything. Woody Allen, then an emerging comedian and playwright, cast her in his play Play It Again. Sam in 1969. The chemistry between them, intellectual, comic, electric, was undeniable, both on stage and off. When the play became a film in 1972, Keaton reprised her role, bringing her natural humor and timing to the big screen for the first time. The performance drew attention from critics and casting directors, and Hollywood suddenly noticed this quirky, wide-eyed actress with a voice like laughter and thought colliding. But the world truly met Diane Keaton in 1972, when she played Kay Adams, Michael Corleone's girlfriend and later wife, in The Godfather. Surrounded by a cast of giants, Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Keaton held her own. Her character began as an outsider to the Corleone empire, but ended up trapped inside it. And Keaton played that change with aching restraint. Francis Ford Coppola saw something in her that others hadn't yet. A softness that hid steel. A normality that made the tragedy more real. The Godfather was a phenomenon, and though Kay wasn't the flashiest role, Keaton's performance left a mark. She returned in The Godfather Part 2 with more weight, more heartbreak, more presence. In one of the trilogy's most haunting scenes, Kay telling Michael she aborted their child to break the family's cycle of violence, Keaton's trembling defiance became the emotional core of the film. It was fearless, and it cemented her as a serious actress in a male-dominated era. Then came 1977, the year that changed everything. Annie Hall. The movie, written and directed by Woody Allen, wasn't supposed to define an era. It was meant to be a small romantic comedy. But Keaton's performance, a mirror of her real self, awkward, witty, vulnerable, radiant, turned it into something larger. Annie Hall didn't just win her an Oscar for Best Actress, it shifted American culture. Her offbeat humor and vintage style, those loose vests, baggy trousers, and men's ties, became the look of the late 70s. She was no longer just a star, she was a movement. The 1980s tested her range. She played opposite Warren Beatty in Reds, a sweeping political epic that earned her another Oscar nomination. She portrayed complex women, artists, lovers, intellectuals, each layered with contradictions. In Shoot the Moon, she gave one of her most underrated performances as a wife navigating divorce and disillusionment. Critics saw in her something rare, emotional truth that didn't need to be loud to be devastating. Through the late 1980s and into the 1990s, Keaton reinvented herself again. She stepped into lighter yet equally thoughtful roles in Baby Boom, where she played a corporate executive suddenly caring for an orphan baby. One of the first films to explore the modern woman's struggle to balance ambition and motherhood. Then came Father of the Bride and its sequel, where she became everyone's favorite on-screen mom. Warm, slightly neurotic, and endlessly relatable. Even as Hollywood's interest in women over 40 faded, Keaton's career refused to dim. She began directing, showing that her eye extended beyond acting. Her directorial debut, Heaven, was an experimental documentary about the afterlife. Later, she directed Unstrung Heroes and several TV films, proving she had a storyteller's soul. The early 2000s brought another defining chapter. In Something's Gotta Give, opposite Jack Nicholson, she gave one of her most iconic late-career performances. Playing Erica Barry, a playwright who rediscovers love and desire in her 50s, Keaton radiated intelligence, sensuality, and vulnerability. The role earned her another Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe win. But more importantly, it broke one of Hollywood's longest-standing myths, that women of a certain age were past their prime. Diane Keaton made middle age not just visible, but magnetic. Through all these decades, Keaton remained prolific, curious, and unboxed. She wrote several books, part memoir, part artistic exploration, including Then Again, a heartfelt reflection on her mother's life and her own changing sense of identity. She also became an advocate for saving not just old homes, but ideas, memory, and craftsmanship. Architecture became her second passion, almost a second career. She photographed abandoned buildings, restored historic properties, and published design books that blended storytelling with style. 5 years ago, Diane Keaton had become something beyond an actress or even a celebrity. She was a living example of authenticity. Younger generations who'd never seen Annie Hall still recognized her instantly. The white shirt, the hat, the laugh. She'd evolved from muse to mentor, from Hollywood icon to cultural touchstone. Her later years were marked by selective projects and quieter living. She appeared in Book Club, The Next Chapter, a lighthearted sequel that felt like a reunion of old friends. In interviews, she spoke less about fame and more about gratitude. For her children, her art, her solitude. "I never wanted to disappear," she said once. "I just wanted to live without noise." And that's exactly what she did. From 1968 to 2025, Diane Keaton's career never burned out. It simply shifted shapes, finding new ways to exist without losing its soul. She didn't just act, she observed. She interpreted. She humanized. She gave audiences women who were messy, witty, flawed, smart, and lovable. Women who looked like us, sounded like us, and made us laugh at ourselves. In a business built on reinvention, she managed to do it with grace and humor, over and over. What impact did she leave behind? Let's find out. Diane Keaton Legacy. For all the numbers linked to Diane Keaton's life, box office earnings, awards, or the value of her homes, none of them truly capture what she left behind. Her real legacy wasn't about wealth or luxury, but about taste, honesty, and the bravery to always be herself in a world that often wanted her to change. It's hard to talk about Diane Keaton without mentioning her style. Not just her clothes, but her attitude. The oversized suits, bowler hats, wide belts over jackets, and crisp white shirts buttoned all the way up became her signature. Her look was both masculine and soft, structured but free. It wasn't made by a stylist or a fashion brand. It came completely from her own sense of comfort and individuality. Over time, this became one of the most recognizable styles in Hollywood. When Annie Hall was released in 1977, audiences didn't just love the movie, they loved her. Soon, stores everywhere were flooded with requests for the Annie Hall look. It was quirky, natural, and most importantly, real. While many actresses wore outfits meant to impress, Keaton wore what made her feel comfortable. "I always felt like a misfit," she once said, "so I figured I might as well dress like one." That honesty became her strength. For many women who watched her, especially those told how to look or act, Keaton was a revelation. She made intelligence and awkwardness stylish. She proved that being feminine could also mean being funny, smart, and unpredictable. She made it all look effortless, even when it wasn't. Her influence stretched across generations. Emma Stone once called her the definition of gutsy elegance. Anne Hathaway said she was the woman who taught us that being weird is a kind of grace. Reese Witherspoon credited her with showing that being serious about your work doesn't mean taking yourself too seriously. These weren't just compliments. They were acknowledgments of what Keaton represented, the courage to be genuine. In a film industry that often treats aging as a flaw, Diane Keaton showed a different path. She didn't fight time, she welcomed it. She let her gray hair show, her wrinkles stay, and her laugh lines deepen. She continued to explore new roles, new ideas, and new joys long after many actresses were told to stop. Movies like Something's Gotta Give and Book Club didn't just win her new fans. They helped women everywhere see that love and happiness don't end with youth. When asked about aging, she once said, "I'm not trying to erase who I've been. I'm trying to keep meeting who I'm becoming." That line captured everything about her. She made growing older look beautiful, honest, and full of curiosity. Fashion designers from Ralph Lauren to Celine have praised her influence for decades. Her love for layers, tailored suits, and simple colors became the foundation of modern style. Yet she never followed trends. One designer described her perfectly, the accidental icon of individuality. But her influence wasn't just about fashion, it was about how she approached success. Her career and her fortune grew slowly, built on patience, good instincts, and authenticity. She didn't rely on publicity or endorsements. She simply trusted her taste and her timing. Long before branding became popular, Keaton's brand was being herself. She handled fame with balance, grateful but private, warm but reserved. She attended events, but she didn't chase attention or drama. Her strength came from knowing that being visible isn't the same as being valuable. That's something many people in today's entertainment world are still learning, that silence and restraint can be just as powerful as noise. Her choices in life and art showed her deep understanding of contradiction. She could be funny and serious, confident and uncertain, strong and shy, all at once. She wasn't afraid to show her flaws or laugh at herself. That honesty made people love her. It's what keeps her legacy alive. You can see her influence in young actresses who proudly wear suits on red carpets, who embrace their quirks, and who bring humor to roles that once might have been flat. You see it in writers and filmmakers who now create complex, real, female characters. You even see it in design lovers who say her books introduced them to architecture as a form of storytelling. Money can measure many things, but not this. Not how she made people feel understood. Not how she permitted women to be imperfect. Not how she turned shyness into charm and independence into beauty. So when people talk about Diane Keaton's fortune, the millions, the homes, the royalties, they're only describing one kind of success. The deeper kind lives in every woman who dares to be herself, in every artist who chooses substance over popularity, and in every person who believes aging doesn't mean fading. Diane Keaton's greatest investment was never money or property. It was authenticity, and that kind of wealth never loses its worth. So, what do you think about Diane Keaton's astonishing fortune? Let us know your opinion in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.